Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2 o'clock panel slot here at the Independent Hotel Show. My name is Stephen Walpole. I'm going to be your chairperson and leading some of the questions and the panelists today. So today, the title is Elevating the Hotel and Pub Restaurant. So the idea of this session is just to get some of our lovely panelists to just talk about some of the highs and the lows of sort of the post-pandemic era and where now we are with food costs, labour costs, sort of staffing, but also some of the ingenious and innovative ways people from different parts of the country. So I'd like to introduce Veryan Palmer, Rob Jones and Ashley Aberdeen. Got the names right. That's the first bit out of the way. So I'm just going to start quite openly and talk about the fact that in the last few months, in the last year or so, it's been a real challenge to get back on our feet, to really find ways to get people back into restaurants, into bars, into pubs, and really sort of look at showcasing what we do. But as you see, from a point of view of staffing, we've had a real issue with our industry sort of being decimated slightly in regards of numbers for both guests and in regards of staffing not returning and finding everything from delivery drivers for Amazon to this online world. So I'd probably like to start with, how have you guys sort of found the coming back and the staffing percentage and the staffing point of view? Veryan, how have you found it down in the southwest?
I think.
Sorry, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit first? I should have done that bit first.
Hello everyone. Second time round, I was on the last panel as well. So I am director at the family-owned Headland Hotel down in beautiful sunny Cornwall. We have 88 bedrooms and suites, 3 restaurants, 40 cottages, a spa and an aqua club. So fairly complex operation. And of course, Cornwall was the home of the staycation for the last 3 summers. And for us, the reopening after the first lockdown, so in July 2020, was particularly challenging. We're basically at the end of the run of any delivery of anyone from anywhere up country. And with 9 days' notice to open the hotel, get the staff going, get all our supplies back on track was very challenging indeed. And I think, being in quite such a regional location, that delivery problem has still a delivery problem. Certain suppliers, won't mention any names, who sort of, oh yes, Cornwall, where's that again? We're getting there now. Things are definitely improving.
So Rob, in your point of view for the Upham pub group, how have you found sort of the coming back in regards to all your different outlets? You want to give people an overview of what your group does and how many sites and the challenges that you found in regards to staffing and opening up?
Yeah, I'm the exec chef for a pub company called Upham. So I'm an imposter at the hotel exhibition here. Sorry about that. It's been incredibly challenging. So many lines of ingredients have been substituted constantly or not available, trying to keep a menu constant and consistent since the pandemic has been an absolute nightmare. Staffing always a challenge. I'm proud to say that we've never had to close a pub. We've never had to close any day. So we've managed to get through it, and it's been constant juggling. But I think things have certainly eased and got better in the last sort of 6 months in terms of supply, and I'm thankfully seeing a more consistent supply, particularly of British beef. That was a challenge because we run 3 steakhouses, so that was a lot of the time we were having to put some South American beef on our tables, which I wasn't particularly proud of doing, but sometimes in order to fulfill a menu, you have to do this. But yeah, there's some relative normality getting back to a degree.
So
Yeah.
in regards of obviously having to make some changes and sacrifices from the menu point of view, obviously the chefs are not coming back in the same levels that we've sort of seen. So for a London hotel, for instance, obviously, Ashley, you look after the Nomad Hotel. How have you found in regards of what's happened in regards of your staff and then your ability to look at ingredients and then be inventive with your menus? Because you're in quite a little hotspot, aren't you, of London?
Yeah, I'm the executive chef of the Nomad London, located in Covent Garden, across from the Royal Opera House. We've had a little bit of a unique experience being the youngins in the London scene right now. We just recently opened about a year and a half ago in May. So I arrived early of 2021 to kind of jumpstart the project opening early. We kind of paused the project because of COVID and really wanted to make sure that we were able to open smoothly as best as possible, obviously with other variants caused other problems throughout the year. But in terms for us, we definitely found some struggles with consistent staffing. I think it's an incredibly competitive market with the hotel scene right now. You have the older institutions that are very competitive incentively, and so we try to stay in line with that and make sure that we're always kind of keeping the team that we need as the core to sustain the quality of life as well as the product for the guest. In terms of product as well, likewise, similar issues with consistency and needing to pivot to get the products that we know and love. We do have to make those changes, unfortunately, to keep what we want on the menu. But we do change our menu seasonally, which helps with the constant product unavailability.
So in regards to the creativity then, obviously with now supply being an issue, products being huge cost, really trying to have a look at how you've taken that and tried to turn it into a positive. So Veryan, right, for the Southwest, I mean, you've got some wonderful suppliers down there and you're quite your own little world in that part of the country, aren't you? But how have you found the challenges? How have you found people have either bound together or have you found it very, different in regards of, is it a bit like a London with a bit of a fight over everybody trying to, sell you produce or get you produce? How have you found it in the Southwest?
I think back as we went into winter 2020, so end of first lockdown, start of second lockdown, we made a very conscious decision at the Headland that the money that was coming into the county, we were going to effectively spend as much as we possibly could in the Duchy of Cornwall. We always focused on Cornish produce because a lot of our customers actually wanted to eat Cornish produce. It's quite well known now as being an amazing place to grow and to cultivate food. But when we really went to town, sadly, you still can't grow pineapples in Cornwall other than at the Eden Project. But our executive chef, Fred, started to truly explore the micro suppliers. So who knew you could grow lemons in a large greenhouse in Falmouth? It's great. So with us changing our sort of direction entirely to really trying to source everything we possibly could from Cornwall, and bear in mind that the Headland, 65% of if you did a radius around the Headland, 65% of that is sea, not many fields out there. It was challenging at times, but we now work with a lot of small suppliers who are bringing along pigs, things like that, and our food costs haven't gone, touch wood, haven't gone up as much as I think if we'd been buying produce from out of county. We've developed very good relationships with people, and when our chefs are going out into a field to select the pig, and that pig then comes into the kitchen, some of the younger chefs, I will say now, the apprentices, are deeply disturbed by the fact the pig had a name, but we're helping them with that. But I think the whole partnership model where our local suppliers are recognising that we're doing everything we can to buy all our lettuce, all our salad produce, all comes from Cornwall. Because luckily we can grow lettuce until about January. Then we have about 2-3 months where we can't, and then it starts again. And that partnership model where we're talking to the suppliers, they're bringing in produce, it's kind of going back to where food buying would have been, I don't know, decades ago. Yes. It's quite an interesting shift, and then connecting our suppliers together. So, for example, our muesli and granola is made by a supplier in North Cornwall, where our wine also comes from, North Coast Wines. So we connected our muesli and granola supplier up with our wine supplier, so they all come down on one van all together once a week. So to try and to connect our suppliers together so that their petrol costs were not hitting them. So we've managed to keep paying them the same delivery costs. Their delivery costs haven't gone up because they're starting to now pool resources to try and deliver into us, it's been really great for us.
And so, Rob, from your point of view, obviously you have a number of different sites dotted around parts of the country. How have you found that you have to be quite inventive in regards of your menu choices, or depending regionally? Do you have much in regards of regional changes within your menu, or have you found a similar thing with your ingredients?
Not so much regional changes. We go from some Lymington up to Ascot in terms of the region. It's not a huge distance. We have nine of the pubs that do a very similar menu, just with a lot of specials thrown in. And whenever I change a menu, I get ideas from all of the head chefs in the group, put it together in a big pool, and then I construct the menu from all of their ideas, so they all get the buy-in, and they can see items of their choosing and things that they think will fit in their individual sites, and then anything left over from that I feel is relevant will then go into a big specials bank, and then to differentiate between some of the pubs, because the three of them are within sort of 15 miles of each other. So, I mean, similar clientele.
Much competition then, I can imagine it being quite competitive.
It's nice, for some of them to have, maybe they've got pheasant on one night and they've got, venison or they've got halibut or, as a special. So you can see differences.
So you haven't really changed the creativity too much in regards of sort of the cost-cutting side of stuff. You're not making them strip it all out. You haven't tried to suddenly go vegan because it's cheaper because there's no dairy or meat, for instance.
We've there are certain items that we will buy in to just help with the label model. Some bar snacks and bits and pieces, some desserts, but I like to try and keep the skills in the kitchen as much as we can do.
That's good.
And we're sort of running some master classes as well, just to sort of bring on some of the younger team members. It's just constantly evolving, constantly changing and trying to improve. Really, those are the challenges. Really.
So Ashley, come on, because you've got two quite regional people here, and then you're bang smack in the heart of London. So what's been happening in regards of how you've seen? Because I think if you're looking at London, I think numbers have picked up quite drastically, especially from a tourist point of view, since things have sort of come down. So what are you sort of doing differently in regards of food and ideas? And
I think everyone was kind of bunkered in during the COVID, and as soon as the city was allowed to let anyone leave their house, they did, and they jam-packed as many places as humanly possible. We've definitely been feeling us fill up more in the busy season. We were gearing up for end of August, September, October, and holiday season. And through our vendors, and what we found is that we have the big vendors that we use throughout the entire city that are consistent, but we've also been investigating smaller niche family-owned businesses that are actually London-based. And so, whereas I wish we could have everything from one location, I really do, that isn't exactly sustainable for us. And I admire that we actually use a lot of companies that are creating sustainable hydroponic greens and lettuces that are grown actually in containers. Those moving containers that drive around in trucks, they'll park them in parking lots or vacant spaces throughout the city, and they'll grow hydroponic lettuce that are 100% yield, will have no bugs, no pesticides or chemicals, and can be controlled to perfect sizes that we actually want. And so you're not just getting this beautiful product that is delicious and sustainable, you're supporting family-owned businesses as well, which we feel really strongly in doing. So we've been trying to explore. I think a lot of people during COVID have been cooking at home or finding different businesses. We're really trying to explore the smaller guys as well as using the big ones to kind of offset the prices that we use. And so we can kind of make sure that we're getting the most unique ingredients, which help with the menu creativity process. And we also try to utilize things from top to bottom for minimizing waste. So we have 2 restaurants in our hotel as well, both kind of polarizing menus. One is very local and seasonal, which I love, and one is an homage to Southern California, where I came from, and California cuisine. So we'll use a lamb loin on the bone. We'll get everything in whole product, and then we'll utilize byproducts for other restaurants. So make sure that nothing is going to waste, and kind of keeping that and utilizing the team for their creative process for the menu changes seasonally.
Perfect. Well, let's talk a little bit then about if you're looking to elevate your restaurant menus or your pub menus and seeing what you do. How have you found the sort of post-pandemic trends? So there's been quite a lot around plant-based. There's been a lot around sort of health, gut health, and certainly more about well-being. And the one thing that's sort of been, in some ways, a positive but a challenge is calories and calorie counting. And I think, since there's been this thing about looking at calories on menus, I think it's stifled in some way because people are quite nervous about having very large calorific looking things on the menu. I think, if you can have almost half of your calorific, content in one day just by a burger and chips, but it is making people look at menus differently and making them eat. But at the same time, I think you may see, or you're probably going to tell me now, is like whether you've seen a flip from some of the indulgent eating to the everyday eating to actually the more precautional sort of way of eating. I mean, right, how are you seeing down in the southwest? Have there been much about calories? Are you seeing much in the difference in a switch in regards of your choices on menus, or has it stayed pretty constant?
So I have to admit, we are very, very lucky that I topped out in August this year at 248 staff.
Oh, you got away with it, because I think it's 250 is the
250. But I've got a bit of a bone to pick with the government about this because we employ a lot of 14 to 86-year-olds is our age range. Every single person in my team has to count towards that. Some of my staff do 2 hours a week. We've got 11 people with additional needs who work very short hours, but it's brilliant that we can offer them a role. Yet it goes towards the 250 person head count. If anyone wants to complain to their MP about that, please feel free to do so on my behalf. So yes, we haven't seen the challenges, though I know that there are some organisations in Cornwall that have had a really big difficulty with this. And the sort of the hearsay that I've heard from them is that people don't care at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the guests. I think that if you're coming on, maybe it's different from the type of person who comes to Cornwall. The vast majority of our diners are on holiday. And whereas for you in the pub business, it might be they've gone out for just a date night or something like that. For you might be have a lot of business people where actually, yes, you wouldn't want to have a really big, indulgent, calorie-filled dish. Whereas when you're on holiday, you see that lobster mac and cheese. It doesn't matter how many calories it's going to have in it. You're going to have it.
You're going to have it. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's where it's quite. I think it was quite a blunt brushstroke tool that they implemented on that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it does make you wake up. I think as part of a regime or part of your day, I think it is mindful to keep an eye on it. But I do feel the challenge for the chef or for the people to design menus or have food that's open to all. It can be a hindrance, and I think certainly, Rob. I mean, your menus. I mean, how have you had the same issue, or are you under 250 as well? Have you found that loophole like they have in the southwest?
There's a lot less butter in my cooking these days. Yeah, I mean we've had a look into each dish. All of our menu items are built on a platform called Kitchen Cut. Everything in the business is built on it, which is a pretty complex operation for quite a small company. A lot of that's down to me to write those menus and write the recipes. So yeah, we've looked at perhaps breaking dishes up a little bit. So perhaps you sell a burger separately from the fries and sauces separately and things like these.
So give a bit more choice,
or taking cheese out of something. I mean, there's been a lot of work and thought going into it, and we've obviously worked on a lot of vegetarian, vegan, and just lower calorie dishes. And yeah, we all got to think about it. But there's some, if you want to go in and have a higher calorie dish, we're trying to sort of cover many bases, as I think we all are really. There's many people with many allergies and dietary requirements. So yeah, we're trying to cover lots of bases.
So actually, come on then, breakfast, lunch, dinner, room service through the night. I mean, it's a challenge and a half. How do you deal with this? The calories and the change in dietary of your requirements.
I mean, we've definitely seen a trend where people don't count calories at 3 a.m. when they want a hot dog. I'll tell you that. I mean, we definitely are a business hotel. We're a transient hotel. We're an American brand. And I think you get all waves of life coming through. You get the ones that want special occasion and want to go, top to bottom, caviar and cream and whatever it is. But then you have the ones that are health conscious and want something lighter. So we definitely balance the menu according to kind of your choice. And it's a little bit of a high-low. So we'll have something a little bit more casual and easy. Or you can have a chicken stuffed with butter and brioche and not feel bad about it and think about it tomorrow, hopefully, and really make sure that you're kind of having that experience. So we do tailor the menu to a guest experience, hoping that they'll think about it and want to come back.
So just going back to what we just touched on a minute ago, allergens and lifestyle, I think what we've noticed a big trend in regards to the food aspect is since the vegan sort of exploded, and it's sort of, you found that certain allergens have sort of died out. So dairy has sort of become something that's become ingrained into the vegan movement. So therefore it's not shouted about as a dairy free, but suddenly, seeing a lot more of the other allergens like the soy, like the gluten, having to put the allergens on the menu and control them within your kitchen, losing kitchen staff, and sort of the experienced one that you've got. How have you found the challenge of managing sort of the openness of menus and trying to avoid certain allergy categories, but also training staff and then working in a diligent way within the kitchen? I mean, surely that's been a challenge in itself to look at, how do you manage that?
Yes, I think, the allergen reporting has been around now for long enough that all chefs, apart from maybe 16-year-old commie chefs first into the kitchen,
Yes.
have got to grips with now. I think most chefs and most restaurants you now see, people tend to create dishes where there are less allergens. And it's about training the young chefs. But then I think sometimes we forget that a lot of the younger chefs have been in schools where they've got friends who have allergies. And so whilst they might not know the sort of the legal framework that in a kitchen you have to operate within, they're still very aware of what happens if you don't get it right. So whilst we still do create menus, and there will certainly be dishes, we have a lot of dishes on our menus now which are gluten-free on request. So
It can be adjusted.
a lot of our sauces will not contain gluten now, because it's just, if we can remove things without compromising the quality of the dish, then it's a lot better and it's a lot safer for the whole team.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's definitely where things get a bit elevated. I think you talked about a lot less butter and a lot less cream, a lot of old school style of doing stuff. I think menus have evolved quite a lot. I think the younger generations of chefs coming through are a lot mindful about food and the impact. I mean, certainly more than my generation trained as a chef. We had the old-fashioned classical way of doing stuff, which was really. So it's quite nice now to see that. But I think also we've multiculturally, certainly around more about the London-centric side of stuff. Different cuisines coming in that actually naturally don't have some of these things within their cuisines and stuff. It's also really helped. But allergens are one of those ones that I do still find it difficult. As you said, it's been around for a few years now. There's still quite a few groups and chains and things out there that will blanket it that they cannot do anything, and they are, they may contain, which I think is quite sad, because in the current climate where you have to think about your ingredients, you've got to think about your kitchens, you've got to think about your staff. There's some very ingenious, clever ways of, as you said, incorporating it in where it becomes the standard without it actually being a standalone. You no longer have to wear that armband that you're that special person on. Make that many requests. But I think the industry's changed quite a lot, and I think the pandemic has sort of helped that as well. So I think people are more understanding of it. I mean, Rob, how have you found? Because with different sites and different menus, I'm assuming your kitchens are set out in a very set way. So How do you manage it? Are you quite open with your menus and what you have?
Yeah, it's quite, it's pretty tricky. I mean, some of the kitchens are quite small, so we have a very strict policy that if we have someone who comes in with a severe allergy, it's you literally have to stop a service, clean down a section, and it does stop
The whole lot.
the flow of service, but there's obviously a huge price to pay if you get it wrong. So we've done a lot of work with making sure that we've got all the relevant information for all our guests. But again, it's like the calorie situation. It's extremely complex when you're trying to give your kitchens as much freedom as possible in terms of the specials that they put on, and it's trying to get people to make sure that they follow specs, follow recipes that have been done, and which is challenging when sometimes you've got agency chefs in your kitchen. So keeping an eye on that is particularly challenging, but. We try as our utmost to offer as many dishes as possible to cover.
It's about the inclusiveness. I think that's the part for me, and I think that's where again you're looking to elevate anything. You want to get as many people through, and I think years ago when there was this big thing against allergens and someone said, I'll start a restaurant up where I'm completely allergen free, like you have in the niche restaurants, because if you're not willing to service them, then I will, because they are still customers and they are still people. But it is very difficult when you've got a complete change, and certainly for you, actually, the numbers coming through and the different skill sets and stuff that you've got.
I mean, we have two sides of the story. We have allergens and we have people who don't like things, right? So we always have a lot of options to, if someone says, I have an allergy to mushrooms, we actually train the staff to really, the dining room to really dig into like exactly what they don't or can't eat. So that way we can prepare in the kitchen it to be as safe as possible. So if I don't like mushrooms, but I say it's an allergy, we will stop everything and we'll scrub everything down and make sure that that's clean for them. But I want to make sure that the kitchen is getting as much information as possible so we can really be sure, is this a severe allergy or is this something you don't want to eat today? And so we make sure the staff is trained on every ingredient from every dish so that they can make sure they can have that conversation with the guests. And we get all that information. But as well, apart from that, we also make sure that 40% of the menu, 40 to 50% can be adjusted. So if something has a vinaigrette that has an egg in it, we'll do some on the side without the egg and make it with the vinaigrette, and so we can make that vegan. So we try to compromise without losing consistency or quality, but making sure that the guests can essentially get mostly everything on the menu with a little change or variance without losing our integrity of what we're trying to do.
Well, yeah, it's a really, really good point. I mean, communication between front and back of house is so key in making sure that we keep guests safe. Yeah.
And I think that the next point I was going to be coming on to was the communication with your customers, and then how you're bringing them on that journey of how the world has changed and how things are impacting on us, as an industry, in regards of staffing, and so to be more of a, kind, if you like, towards staff because they might be new or they might be, not experienced, but also with the food as well. So, for instance, how have you found your customers have taken to, for instance, things now looking at more sustainability, looking at more ethical parts of what you do, getting produce that has more of a story and more of a thing behind it? I think, how do you get that message across? Have you found that you've been able to sort of enhance your offering by showcasing more about, especially with the Southwest, you've already said like some of your ingredients, but you haven't seen much change in your prices, but I'm assuming, Rob and Ashley, like some of your meat prices and some of your poultry prices and fish must have absolutely astronomically gone through. So I'd sort of throw out there in regards of, how have you found the sustainability movement and the ethical side of things impacting in your choices or in your menu selection or in regards of your drive and where your focus is for the next 2, 3, 4 years? Anybody?
What a question.
After you.
There's no doubt that people are wishing to make more sustainable choices on their menus. We were quite interested in this, and did a bit of an experiment. Same cut of beef for a steak, same, one was, sorry to everyone, English, and one was a Cornish. The Cornish one was more expensive. We knew the farm it had come from, and we wanted to see what would happen. Would people choose the locally sourced Cornish steak that was exactly the same weight, exactly the same garnishes, or would they choose the English, somewhere north of the border, north of the Tamar River? And it was astonishing how many people chose the local produce because it had less food miles, because we could tell them it came from a farm 7 miles from the hotel, that our chefs had been out there. We knew that the cows were fed on the lovely grassy pastures. And it was really interesting to almost verify that where we believed our guests wanted us to go. We've got a whole new kitchen, 2-level kitchen, and whole new restaurant that we're building from January to March this coming winter. And it really ascertained the fact that for us, guests are interested in the fact that our kitchen is going to be induction only. All chefs are like, and that we are choosing local produce. People are prepared to pay more if they think that pound is staying in Cornwall, they're spending, and that it is being the produce is being raised in a sustainable way. The lettuces are organic, things like that. People will pay more, and I think for us, the steak question was an interesting one to actually verify that what we believed we knew about our guests actually was the case.
So Rob, I mean, you touched on it earlier, like having to change some of your British beef for South American to try and hit the price point, because you have a very different level of customer, if you like, to some degree. So therefore, the challenge for you, obviously, it would be great to get grass-fed or olive-fed beef from somewhere, Wagyu or whatever you want it to be. But for you, you've got the other side of the coin. How did you sort of manage that? How was it perceived from your customers in regards to changing from a local to potentially
I think as
different
I said earlier on, we're trying, for the last couple of years, we've just been trying to keep our sites open. That was the main aim on day to day was just making sure that we open. And I think in recent months we've been focusing more on sustainability and where our produce comes from. Pretty much all our fish comes from the south coast, from Brixham. Our beef, we're starting to buy more. Being proud to put Hampshire beef on the table, which is really important for, obviously the pubs that we have. We're sort of using local cheeses from Old Winchester to Isle of Wight Blue, etc. And I'm also working with suppliers trying to cut down on packaging. That's a big one for me. Is I see, aubergines turning up in my kitchens with, plastic wrap around the outside, and the amount of polystyrene boxes that come from fish suppliers, etc., and it's really just trying to get them to bring things in reusable plastic containers that we can send back to them, and asking them to supply fruit and veg that doesn't necessarily all come in plastic bags and individually wrapped. That to me is something that I'm quite passionate about trying to cut down on. I just see it as a real scourge of our sort of generation. Everything has to come in a little package, and it ends up just going in a bin somewhere. And it's really troubles me, to be honest. Yeah.
So actually, have you made any changes? You're quite lucky in some respects, because London, you probably can get anything from anywhere. But surely, from your point of view, have you seen your clients, because you have clients from all over the world and stuff, how have you done with your menu in regards to sustainable and ethical sourcing?
We do use a few vendors that use recycled plastics to keep going back and forth, and I would love that trend to be a little stronger in central London. We do get a lot of packaging that I would prefer to come reusable. In terms of pricing on the menu, we keep our cost as low as we can by using everything local. We do have to get our beef from South America sometimes as well.
Yes.
And outsource things that we wouldn't normally, but Hereford beef and things and Cornish chickens we love using, and trying to stay as close to the island as possible. Can I call us an island? England's an island, yeah. And so we definitely try to keep our costs low, our waste low, and utilizing sustainable product. And cross-utilizing as well between the restaurants to make sure that we're keeping the price down. But we are a hotel, and we're trying to keep our staff happy and healthy, and utilizing agency as well to sustain the staff we don't have. So there are added costs, but we've been really good about the inflation this past year and making sure we don't hit too high, so we keep those guests coming back, returning as well.
So for me, it's been quite interesting because you are in different parts of the country, you're from different areas as well. So it's been nice to see that actually the constant theme in regards of trying to be creative as possible, trying to think about the sustainability, the ethical side of stuff, staffing. You've all got the same issues. It doesn't matter where you are, but actually it's been really nice to sort of hear that, the challenges are really quite real in regards of even in the southwest where you've got everything contained, you still have the issues of deliveries, you still have the issues of how things are coming. You're still doing a lot about staff training, and I think what you're doing down there, that sounds amazing in regards of the apprenticeships and being able to do more. And I think that we've certainly got to educate them about food. You've certainly got to get them back into this industry because it is a wonderful industry, but it's not easy. But we have business at the end of the day. So I'm going to open it up to anybody on the floor that'd like to ask a question. My lovely glamorous assistant Phoebe's going to walk around with the microphone. So if you could just let your question to
I have
who.
a question for Ms. Palmer. I own a hotel in the Isle of Wight, so I suspect we have many similar experiences as Cornwall. We have a very elevated restaurant. We have the only Michelin-starred chef on the island. And I was expecting this panel to be very much about elevating the hotel restaurant. What I'm interested in is we listened to Jeremy King earlier. He was saying that with the hotel restaurant, he highly recommended having a separate separate entrance for the restaurant than the hotel. And I sort of wondered what your experience was in terms of having a hotel restaurant as opposed to other restaurants in Cornwall that are maybe your competitors in the town of Newquay, and what you thought about how you need to pitch your restaurant within a hotel versus a restaurant that's not part of a hotel.
Okay, wow, okay. So that's quite an interesting question given what we're doing with our restaurant and main kitchen this winter. So spending £2.5 million on it, and it's going to be completely transformed. But with that, we are removing the name of the restaurant. Samphire has been there for 15 years. That's going, completely rebranding. And the whole plan is that this, instead of being, I'm going to dinner at the Headland, which is what it always has been, will be, I'm going to dinner at, currently a restaurant with no name. But that's going to take a lot of work. But we have the added challenge with that is that if you arrived at the Headland, I don't know if you know the building at all, big red brick from the Witches building, if you went in through a side door, through a separate entrance, you'd be a bit cheesed off. You want to arrive at the front door, in through the main entrance, and have all the glory of the amazingly beautiful building around you. It would be a bit like, I don't know, going to the Ritz and being shoved in the side entrance rather than the main entrance. So I think it's probably different for different businesses. But for us, our guests will always come in through the front door. Because that's what they expect and that's what they want. However, we have the challenge of creating a restaurant that is in its own right a restaurant, not just something that is in our building at the hotel. I'll let you know how that goes.
Ashley, how does it work for you then?
Well, the Nomad has always been its own entity. We've always been a hotel and a restaurant. So we do want them to walk through those grand doors. And you see the lobby, which is usually really elegant and grand. And then the dining room processes through. And so you kind of get that feeling of elegance and the quality that you guys want exude from the outside. And then it kind of takes you through as the beginning of the story of hopefully your experience.
Sarge's question. Anybody else got any questions? Yep, gentleman at the back. You're going to be busy, Phoebe. You're going to get those steps up.
Hello. Thank you for that. I think what came across from the talk is we all need to keep our quality up, right? If we're going to keep people coming out and spending money. I think the one thing you've not really touched on is pricing and costs. And I wondered if, particularly with perhaps increased kitchen costs, with paying chefs more, whether you're seeing more pressure on achieving better food costs, so which is obviously the opposite of upping quality at the same time, and what that means ultimately for the price of going out and eating good food.
Ashley or Rob, do you want to kick this one off?
I think honestly, being creative on the menu and cross-utilizing ingredients and finding usage in the trim or on a byproduct of something helps keep our food costs low. We definitely want to make sure our staff is happy and supported so we can sustain the business. That's kind of where it all begins. But we try to really cross-utilize to make sure we can keep our food costs at the level that we want. It is going to increase a little bit, and we're going to try to protect it as much as we possibly can, but being creative with the ingredients that we're bringing in, minimizing waste, and using the byproducts or finding a different product that we maybe didn't use before that might be on a lower price point that we could be more inventive with or creative on the menu, and finding different ingredients that are available that might not be the high-end beef fillet, but there might be another cut that we can use that's equally delicious, that might be a few pounds less, that would be just as exciting to the guest. So creativity is incredibly important for that process.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's working with suppliers to just to look at every eventuality and every there's so many ingredients out there, and you always sort of working towards looking at dish costs and putting exciting and interesting food on the table, but obviously there are limitations to how much someone coming into a local pub wants to pay for a starter or a main course, particularly at lunchtime, for example. But so it's constantly a challenge, and in terms of staff costs, we've discussed this sort of earlier on, and the industry has changed hugely in the past 2 or 3 years. And rightfully, chefs don't want to work, 60 plus hours a week anymore. So we're having to pay more. We're having to look at weekly rotas and bring people down to a more just a better working week,
But I think also from a pricing point of view, because the whole world's in the same situation, I think customers are a little bit more understanding that things will cost a bit more. I think overinflating, but we spoke about it earlier, communication is probably key. As long as you're telling them why you are reducing your menus or you are changing certain things about what you're doing, I think as long as the message is clear and it doesn't feel like you're pulling the carpet from underneath them and sitting down, I think the transparency is now, it has to be there, because you need to be able to tell these people. And if you are being more ingenious, so you are taking some of the more primary cuts out and you're putting some, they're not secondary cuts anymore, because you can be really clever with it, but changing what you're doing. Yes, everything's now, electricity, gas, all the energy sources. Like you said, these things cost money, or in your case, pumping money into a kitchen that's way more efficient in regards of induction. God, I loved induction in the early days. I think I'd ever, but I think it is a challenge, because if you've been at a certain price point to suddenly then, elevate stuff 25, 30%. But, and even from my point of view, because I develop a lot of food for retail as well, ingredients cost has shot up. So, you have to put that cost forward. You can't keep it back. But at the same time, you have to be inventive. So therefore, changing your meat supplier or doing something else with it, still elevating those dishes, or you can reduce the menu and still elevate it, I believe. I still think you can do quite a lot with it. I think it's about the buy-in from the customer. I think that's where it comes in. Food costs are always a challenge, but most of the time it's down to margins. So, it's just whether you're willing to do that trade-off between how much margin will I take? Am I willing to take less? Actually, getting people to understand that you should probably cost per dish rather than cost blanketly across what your food costs could be. I think there's some very inventive ways to do stuff. You talked about it, Rob, like using a computer system now that can really do all that working out for you and the way of changing it and doing it. So I think all the things we spoke about sort of touch on it. But you're right, pricing is the one that's driving everybody. Everybody wants to make sure you're getting the best value for the best price. And in some cases are willing to trade up because of the quality of it, because it's locally sourced or anything else. Or do you, on the other hand, trade down a little bit and look at, so I mean, you know, the fast casual movement's probably helped quite a lot in changing a lot of the menu choices that's around. I think, you know, even some of the fast casual sort of digital age, you know, that's stripped a lot of costs out for people, so you can still get a lot of good quality food, but without some of the overheads and stuff, which is a problem because it's de-skilled it in some ways, but in other ways it makes your job a bit easier because you can now, you know, upscale sort of a brasserie style or a, you know, bistro, or be a bit more inventive with it. But yeah, pricing is a real challenge. It really is. Any more questions before we have to wrap up? Well, that was like a quick draw. That's like being in the Wild West, isn't it? Phoebe, have you got the mic? Phoebe was going on a break. Look, poor lovely. So we'll start, because this gentleman's nearest to you, and then we'll finish with this guy here at the end.
Hello. Hi, guys. Edward Hampshire, HA Agency. Just a quick question, quite a general one when it comes to you know, the combination of hotels and restaurants, and merging or you know, splitting those two in regards to marketing. How are you drawing different audiences? You know, whether it's through social media, or is it like very classic marketing, or are we using a lot more digital when it comes to splitting the two up? Like I imagine for the Headland, you've got this new restaurant that you want people to kind of acknowledge as maybe something a bit more separate. The people who just love the food, the quality, the dining experience are there for that, as opposed to the hotel, and cross-promoting potentially the two as well. Like, how have you found that? And for the Nomad as well, I think would be really interesting. So, yeah.
So at the Headland, traditionally, historically, we've always marketed as the Headland. No separate spa, no separate anything. Everything is done under the one brand, the Headland. That was, to be brutally honest, was because we didn't have any chefs in the operation who could take nice pictures of food. We now do have chefs who can take very nice pictures of food, and we are exploring at the moment how we're going to help with our whole branding team, how the new restaurant is very likely to have its own complete setup, because also we're not treating it as the restaurant at the Headland anymore. This is going to be its own name, its own brand separately. So it's actually quite a divergent sort of strategy compared to what we've done before. Again, I'll let you know how it goes in 6 months to a year.
For the Nomad, we definitely use social media not as a primary. We have an outsourced PR that is incredibly focused on our F&B program as well as the hotel. But as we are one entity, we do always make sure that it is tied together in some way. I think social media or Instagram kind of speaks for itself on its own way, at least individually. When they do come in, you kind of hope if someone takes a photo on their phone and posts it, it looks good. And you're like always kind of sweating a little bit. And so we always make sure that we are extremely consistent in whatever we're doing, and that everywhere in the spaces are beautiful. So if anyone takes a photo and snaps it, and if they're an influencer and it might make an impact somewhere in the world out there, we're hoping that it might, you know, either bring some people in. So, you know, good media is, you know, any media is good media sometimes. So we always make sure that we have that. But in terms of PR, yeah, we have a source that helps us kind of branch out into different aspects for hotel targeted people coming in, or music focused people coming in, and food driven. So we kind of get the scope of all of them through that.
So that's a question. Well, apparently we have run out of time, so I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Ashley, Robert, Veryan. Really good. Thank you very much for your input.